What's up, guys? Mason the Rock Henderson here, and this is Supergirl Season 3, Episode 22, Make It Rain. Clever title. Oh, goodness. Alright, so that's just about, it starts off the episode pretty well. When you see that title and you just see the pun that they're going for, and it's so obvious, so on the head, like, make it rain. Ooh. Pretty much sets up exactly what to expect in this episode. So, basically, there's like three different moving parts. The one that matters the least, in my opinion, is John is finally trying to do the reach with his father, which apparently allows him to keep all of his father's memories. Here's the thing. If this were all done, like his father's entire story, if this were done in maybe one or two episodes, I wouldn't have cared as much. But this has been a story that has just been pervading itself into the main plot and taking away from the main plot throughout the entirety of the season, and really has had no reason for it up until now. Like, they find his father on a different planet. Okay, well, that's interesting. And they bring him back. Okay, don't really know why, but okay then, we'll see where it goes. And then nothing really happens, and all of a sudden his father is losing his memory. Okay, seems kind of random, but we'll see where this is going. And then we find out apparently it's something that happens with Martians. It's like dementia. It's like, all right, where's this going? And then it's slowly getting worse and worse and worse. And John's struggling with it. Alex is brought in on it, and she's having to deal with it too. Just like, all right, we're taking a lot of time for this. Where's this leading? And then we find out in the last episode, oh, you have to do the reach and take my memories, son. And John is trying to avoid it, and then they decide to do it in this episode. And then every single time they're like, fighting. Cut to John and his dad just watching memories. Can we get back to the fighting, please? Please, sometime soon? Because that's really what it feels like. It feels like it's just a distraction from what is going on, from the rest of the plot. And then at the very end, finally his dad's like, no, son, let me fuse with the earth, and then I can stop this. And I guess maybe he'll do that. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like his father was already about to go anyway. It didn't seem like they completely finished the memory thing, but they got a lot of it done through this episode. But yeah, it was just a distraction throughout most of this. They just cut away to it when all this action is going on, and then just boom, slow it down a little bit. And it was very jolting. So aside from that, though, we do see... So the three Kryptonian witches go into the DEO to get some of Sam's blood, to use that to bring Rain back. Because they do manage to bring her back using one of Coville's little formulas, but it's not the completed Rain. It's just like almost a shell. It's very creepy. It was like screeching like a demon that was just awoken. I'm like, ooh, it's kind of dark. But apparently they also need Purity and Pestilence's blood, which is still in Sam, of course. We find out Sam is apparently like fading away because Rain is getting stronger. And so ultimately they just go to get Sam's blood so they can use that. Or maybe it's just Purity and Pestilence's blood, I don't remember. But basically they're just trying to give Rain her full strength back. So they go and attack the DEO, and that's pretty much what their whole goal is this entire episode. Meanwhile, you got Kara and Mon-El still on Argo, trying to get back. They manage to contact the DEO, work with Gwen to get the portal open, and they show up right at the end to manage to save the day, but they really didn't, because that's what the show loves to do. Hey guys, everything worked out okay. We're all good, and now we're not. Something bad happened again. I don't understand that. It's like she tosses the blood, zaps it with her laser vision. The lady catches it right as she's zapping it. And then it's just like, well, I guess that's it. I guess we're good. And the lady, for some reason, like cuts her hand on the sword or something, and that releases the blood. I don't really know what happened there. They didn't really explain it. But that is what gives Rain her powers back. But there are a couple things that I wanted to touch on here and there. First of all, they did finally clarify a bit of a plot hole that I've had a problem with before. Because I've talked about how that one episode where they blocked out the sun, well, how did they still keep the powers? They finally touched on it in this episode because they tried to help Sam by doing the yellow star, which they were hoping would give her some of, since she had Kryptonian DNA in her still, they were hoping that would help. It doesn't do anything. And then finally later on, they talk about I think it's the Fountain of Lilith or something like that is what it's called. Basically, they were talking about how Rain's power doesn't come from the yellow star, so maybe it comes from there, and it's back in that valley that they went to before when they tried to save Sam and Julia. So I'm like, finally, they've addressed it. They finally addressed, okay, Rain's power does not come from the yellow sun. I'm like, thank you. You took forever to explain that. Now please explain to me why Julia was still able to keep her powers even though she was human, because it seemed to show that typically they'd become the world killer and that's when they'd have their abilities, their strengths. So why is it that one instance? I'm guessing it's probably just some sort of mind thing where it's like Julia just happened to take over the body at that point and managed to, I guess, like take her purity side down, but she still kept the abilities. I don't know. Again, this show doesn't normally explain stuff, so I was surprised when they actually did explain, no, Rain's powers doesn't come from the sun. Like, okay. We also see that Wynn is working on some of the non-lethal weaponry because we're going non-lethal, guys. No more guns because gun control is awesome. Yeah, go liberals. So they just hit on that a bit more. He creates this thing on his belt that like covers him in a shield, and they randomly bring up this guy. He's actually, has he been in this season before? He might have been one of those extras that does have lines here and there, but I don't really remember him off the top of my head. His name is Demos, I think. But Wynn gives him like a belt so he can put it on later. And so after all of this is said and done, he's gone and gotten the blood. It was really funny to me because I don't know what they were going for with this. He's got the blood. He's down at the bottom of the stairs. Alex has already taken on two of them with her kryptonite abilities and taken down two of them, knocked them down to the bottom floor. Somehow, even though they got shot with kryptonite bullets, they're completely okay. I mean, they should not have their abilities anymore because the kryptonite bullets should get stuck inside of them and then boom, no more abilities because that's how kryptonite normally works. Except this time because we have to have an emotional scene where the bad guys get their way just so we can have the final episode with the ultimate climactic fight. Whatever the case though, so two of them get knocked down to the bottom floor. The third one shows up on the bottom floor and Demos has the blood and he's like, slow motion. And they're looking at him in slow motion. And Supergirl and Mon-El and Allura all come into the room and they stop and they're slow motion. And the music's playing. Duh, 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 duh. And it's like super dramatic. And then Alex runs up to the bar and she's looking down in slow motion. And then Demos tosses the blood. And as he's tossing the blood, they all shoot their laser vision at him and wins. And then all three heat visions hit him and he falls and then just heat vision and then he's dead. I'm just like, was all this slow motion really necessary in that scene? Like, what, you needed like 30 more seconds? You're like, yeah, let's just stretch out this one scene for 30 more seconds in slow motion for whatever reason. But ultimately, he tosses them the blood. For some reason, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he tosses the blood and then Selena or one of her two followers sees that and goes, oh, grabs it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then kills him. But no, they're just like, oh, he's tossing the blood. Let's all laser vision him at the same time because that's going to stop him from tossing the blood, even though it's already out of his hands. Smart. But he does manage to get to Kara, and then Kara's just like, you want the blood? Fine, take it. Tosses it, lasers, and then, like I said, she catches it and for some reason manages to, I guess, either save it or maybe it was on her hand. She scraped it off. I don't know. This show doesn't explain stuff very well. But that's pretty much it. I mean, the end of the world starts by the end of this episode. Rain is digging into the Earth's core, and that's causing all this crazy stuff. Wynn makes the same pun as the title of the episode. He's like, we got tornadoes, we got earthquakes, and you guessed it, 100% chance of rain. I'm like, I hate you show writers. You've taken one of the funniest characters and given him one of the worst puns of the entire season. I hate you. I hate you. But there is one more scene where Wynn and Jimmy are together, and Jimmy is talking to Wynn about, look, man, there's no way you could have predicted it. And honestly, I'm thinking to myself, Demos was the only one to die? Because we clearly saw them ripping apart most of the DEO. Like, one guy comes up with a baton, grab him, throw him away, laser vision, laser vision, laser vision. Everybody was getting laser visioned. They should all be dead. But Demos was somehow the only one that died. And like Jimmy said, there's no way you could have predicted he was going to get hit with 3 heat visions all at once. I mean, you gave him enough to withstand like 1. That's pretty impressive. But 3 is like, there's no way to actually predict that. So, in my opinion, It's more a failure of the DEO that they don't have some sort of kryptonite weapons ready. Because shouldn't that be an option? I get the fact that it's like, okay, Supergirl doesn't want you to use kryptonite and Superman doesn't want you to. But here's the fact of the matter. Now you're facing more Kryptonian villains. You know, it's not just Supergirl and Superman anymore. There are actual Kryptonian villains out there, which means you're going to need kryptonite weapons to take them on. Alex has hers. Where's the rest of the DEOs, right? That was what was weird to me. And especially because Supergirl trusts everyone in the DEO so much, she works with them constantly. Even she would have to be like, you know what? Guys, let's have Kryptonian weapons from now on. Just don't use them around me. Make sure I'm not in the room. But if Kryptonian attacks and I'm not around, we need to make sure that you guys are prepared and ready to fight. But nobody's thought about that for some reason, except for Alex. And even then, like, for some reason, it's so weird to me because the effect of kryptonite on Kryptonians in the show is so mixed. Sometimes it's like, okay, Supergirl is near kryptonite and she cannot do anything. She's actually like falling to the ground sick because of the kryptonite being around. And then sometimes it's like, all right, so somebody gets shot with a kryptonite bullet, it's embedded in their back. And she's still just like, all right, let me just take this out, toss it away. I'm good now. And then back into the fight and they're fully powered again. The one woman, Alex, is like using her kryptonite and like, it's like a sonic wave of kryptonite right in her face, and you could see her getting weak, and Alex, beats her up a little bit, but then all of a sudden she's full strength again, even though she's still got the kryptonite thing on. I'm just like, I don't get it. You need to be more consistent with your kryptonite stuff, because it's not consistent at all. It's just whatever the show writers want it to be. Right now we need Supergirl to fail so that way people can see her for a human and not for a Kryptonian god like this cult is believing. So let's have the kryptonite just really weaken her to the point where she just can't stand. And then this scene, well, we can't have them stop the bad guys, even though Alex's kryptonite should just be able to shut them down easily. So let's have it kind of affect them to the point where she can take them on for a few minutes, but not really like stop them. Let's make them still strong enough to where they can beat her up and knock her down. Or no, actually, she knocks them out the window, and then they're just completely fine and able to stand right back up. Like, oh, we got kryptonite bullets in us, but we're okay. So, yeah, I mean, some of it was interesting. Some of the stuff being stuck on Krypton and, being around her mom, and even some of the stuff with the World Killer cult, that's been formed. Some of that is very interesting. And if it were on a better show, I would really enjoy it. But because this season has done so little to catch my interest and has also spent so much time on all these other stupid plot points, I just don't feel as invested as I should be. And that's kind of the biggest flaw of this entire season, is that they didn't do enough to catch my interest, even though there is some good stuff in here. So, all that being said, obviously season finale is next. Not really sure where it's going to go. I mean, obviously they're probably going to stop rain. Whether or not Sam makes it out of it okay, I'll be curious to see. I'm pretty sure she will. I do feel, though, that Alora is probably not going to make it, just because if she did make it, then I feel like, well, Supergirl would just return home, and that would be the end of the show, and we can't have that. So I'm willing to bet that Alora, for some reason, doesn't make it through. Like, she has to sacrifice herself to save Kara. Something along those lines. And I promise I'm not saying, if that actually is what happens, I promise I've not been spoiled on anything. I've managed to avoid a lot of spoilers for these shows that I haven't caught up on yet. So I have no idea what happens in the season finale. So if that is really what happens, that's just how predictable this show is. That's exactly what they're going to do, because it's the most likely thing that they're going to do. So anyways, I'll see you guys there in just a second. Yeah. See ya. And finally, episode 23, Battles Lost in 1. So, season finale. And shockingly enough, made me feel something. Didn't think it was possible, but it made me feel something. A little bit of sadness. I didn't actually think I would care enough about this show to actually feel sad about something, but they did it. It made me sad. So let's talk about it. So first of all, we start off the episode. Jean's father manages to go into the Earth and stop whatever Rain is doing and stop her in the Earth's core as well. We see Supergirl and friends all stop the destruction happening, save lives in the city. Imra and Brainy even come back from the future because apparently at first they say, oh, it's because we got a beacon, and then we find out later, no, it's because they need Mon-El to return to the future to help out because of some interesting stuff that happened. I'll talk about that later. But they also need Winn to come to the future with them. So all of that happens pretty early on. And then Sam is, of course, going through her little quest. She sees her mother inside of this valley, the Dark Valley, I think it's called. But she sees her mother there, thinks it's just a hallucination, but it's actually her mother. Don't know what she's doing there. Don't know exactly what that place is anymore because I'm kind of confused. I thought it was just a place that their mind travels to. So why is her mother there? It made sense at first because I'm pretty sure Rain killed her mother. So it would make sense that, yeah, that would be inside of her mind. But this wasn't a hallucination. It was actually her mother trying to help her. And so her mother does give her the strength to do that. So, that whole part of it was pretty interesting. Rain comes back out of the cauldron. The witches are still trying to, I guess, restart the cauldron or something like that so she can try again, I think. But ultimately, Supergirl and Mon-El and Jean and Allura, they all show up to stop him. And battle commences, all of this happens. And then Sam shows up. She sort of turns the tide, stabs Rain in the back. And then Rain, punches her down. So then Supergirl punches Rain into the cauldron. And she's, burning alive. Laser vision straight through Sam. I'm like, oh, crap. Laser vision through Allura. Oh, well, I saw her dying. Laser vision through Mon-El. I'm like, what? So Jean and Supergirl are the only two alive right now? That's weird. And then all of a sudden she's talking to Winn and Alex at the DEO and talking about, can you find a disturbance? I'm going to go back in time, like Mon-El and his team and the Legion. I'm just like, oh, fake out. Got it. And here's the thing. Is it going to lead to anything? Maybe, maybe not. So far, I haven't seen anything that suggests it will. I will say it does sort of remind me of that one time in The Flash, whenever he reversed time. We saw Harrison Wells reverse Flash at the time. We saw him, vibrate his hand through Cisco, but then Barry reversed time, and so that didn't happen in the first place. And so I was kind of thinking, well, that's weird. Why is that even a thing? Because he just changed time. What's the point of all of that? Ultimately, though, we did see it did come back where Cisco got the vibe power, so he was able to see that different timeline where he got stabbed by Harrison Wells and realized, oh, he's a bad guy. So are they going to do something similar here? There was a Supergirl or a Kara that showed up in Siberia at the same time that she and Rain and Sam all went to the Dark Valley. So is this Supergirl the one that went back in time and for some reason her consciousness went into... That's the thing. I don't really know what she did because it just seemed like she was going to go back in time and do something different. But what ended up happening was she went back in time and actually repossessed her body and then told Sam not to stab Rain so that way they could go to the Dark Valley and Sam could force Rain to drink the water that took away her strength. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. I don't know if there is going to be something to do with this alternate timeline where everybody died and then she went back and did it again. Because ultimately, if there's nothing that comes from this, then what was the point? You could have easily written where Supergirl realized before the fight started, oh, we need to get her to the Dark Valley, and then Sam shows up and then they all do that. There was no reason to kill everyone except for Jean and Supergirl off unless this is leading to something else. So we'll see if that's what happens. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't really trust this show to make a lot of good decisions. So there's a chance something could come of this, but there's also a chance that they just did that to do a fake out. Oh my gosh, guys, everybody died. Just kidding. No one died. It was just a fake out. They just wanted to shock you. So we'll see what comes from that, but ultimately, everything sort of wraps up. Everybody gets kind of a different ending. Jimmy reveals himself in this episode to a woman who apparently, I guess, tells someone, hey, it was James Olsen from Catco. He's Guardian. And he's just like, yeah, I'm Guardian. It was there are two things that popped in my mind. One of them was a pretty terrible joke, but I'm going to share it anyway because it was kind of funny to me. The woman's freaking out. She's like, my son's in there. He's on the second floor. And Jimmy takes off the helmet. He's like, don't worry, I got this. And then goes inside. She's like, my son's gonna get kidnapped by a black guy. Oh my God. Because apparently they want to show that because he's a black man, he has to worry about that stuff. I didn't really expect him to go that way, but it would have been like kind of too on the nose for them to just be like, oh, look, because he's a black guy, she was freaking out and she didn't really trust him. So that was just something upon my head. The other thing was like when he was talking to Wynn about that, and Wynn was talking about wanting to go to the future and whether or not he should go. He's like, I unmasked myself today, and the woman that was freaking out, it was the only way to keep her calm. And he's just like, I think it was because of the humanity in my eyes. I'm like, no, it's probably because you're really good looking from what I understand. Like literally every woman that looks at you in this show is just like, oh, James. So I just imagine like he takes it off. She's like, oh, good looking guy that's going to save my son. Oh, okay. You do whatever you want. Just come, when you bring my son back, could you also give me your number? Again, another joke that just popped in my mind. I'm like, they're not going to go that way, but that would be pretty funny if they did. Anyways, so all that said and done, Jimmy's revealed. Alex talks to Jean about, the whole director thing, wanting to start a family. She wants to turn in her notice, and he's like, no, I'm done here. I want you to be the director. See where that goes, but here's the thing. He does that because she wants to be a mother, which is why she was about to quit the DEO. And then he says, no, you can be the director. That way you're in charge, and I trust that you'll take it where it needs to go. Okay, that's fine. And you can also be a mother and not have to be out in the field as much. Here's the thing. As the director of the DEO, you can't just say, all right, guys, well, good luck today. I'm going to be working from home because I got a daughter to take care of, and, I can't just spend hours away from her at a time. So either she's got to get a nanny, which means then she's not even really being a mother. She's just kind of being there for her occasionally, because she's going to adopt. We know that. She's going to adopt a girl, which I don't have a problem with if you want to do that at some point in season 5 or 6 after she's been an agent for so long and she's been a badass. But to do it in season 3 is like such a drastic change, and I've already talked about that enough. I beat that dead horse. But here's the thing. Like I said, you have to deal with the fact that you're going to be the director of a top secret organization, and you can't just bring your kid into work, which means you're either going to be leaving her alone with a nanny or by herself, or you're going to have to take time away from your director position to do that, which means she's not the right choice for director. Because it's one thing to leave the daughter that you birthed with a nanny, because then you're still the mother. You're still the mother of this girl because you are the one that pushed her out of your body. You share genetics, and so they're going to know. It's your daughter. That's not what it's going to be like, though. And I don't know why I'm saying daughter. I guess I'm just assuming she's going to have a little girl. She might have a little boy. I don't know. But this is different. When you adopt a girl, you can't just leave them with a nanny, because then the nanny's pretty much the mother at that point. Neither of you did any work to get the baby out. And so who's doing more work to take care of the child? Well, the nanny is. So technically, you could argue, even though you signed the papers, the nanny's being a better mother than you right now. So I just thought that decision was stupid, considering why he did it, as far as the mother thing is concerned. So there's that. We've also got, so Wynn decides to go to the future, and this is, Mon-El decides to go too. I will say, I like the scene between Mon-El and Kara again. Again, they're both good actors, just so rarely given good direction from time, for most of the season. But I did like the moment between them, because she decided she wasn't going to go back to Krypton or to Argo, because this is her world and she has to protect it. It's what she's driven to do. Makes sense. Mon-El, same thing. The future needs him. He's a Legionnaire, and he can't just leave it to be, and she understands that. And I'm like, that's very mature of this show. For a show that is so rarely mature, that is a mature decision for both of them to just say, you know what? We both have feelings. It's very clear. I need to stay here. You need to go to the future. It's just what we're both called to do. And that happens, for being a superhero. Sometimes you have to make decisions like that. We've seen that in other shows and other avenues of being a superhero. Sometimes the personal life stuff has to take a back seat to save the world. It's just the show so rarely does that. They would rather make an emotional decision because, oh, I love him so much, or, oh, I can't let them get hurt, or, oh, I don't feel good today because I'm so sad, so let's just take time away from saving the world to talk about our feelings and talk about our problems. So I'm glad they just made that decision right there. I'm like, that is probably one of the most mature scenes Supergirl's had in the past 3 seasons. And then Winn decides he's going to go to the future. I guess Brainy's sort of going to take his spot on the show as the tech guy. It's just not going to be the same, though. I've said it 100 times. I think Winn is probably my favorite character on the show. He's got some of the best lines. Honestly, his delivery on some of the lines that are so poorly written, it still can get a laugh out of me because he does deliver them so well. And he's a guy that, I don't know, like, they handled his character for the most part probably the best. They had that little slip up in season 2 where he was dating that alien girl and he was all about her and he was so focused on her, and that did get really annoying. It did get really like, oh, okay, come on, like, he's not that type of guy. He's the tech guy. We don't want him being all lovey-dovey and all of that stuff. I don't want him there. I want him doing tech stuff and making nerdy references because that's why I enjoy his character so much, because he's hilarious. And so they did make that little slip up in season 2, but this season he was really, really good. And so to see them be like, all right, well, let's send him to the future now. He's not going to be around anymore. It was sad. I was actually pretty upset by that. I'm like, man, taking away the best character. Honestly, I was thinking about it. And again, I said I was going to talk about the future stuff. Brainy comes back and tells Winn and Mon-El that they need them both in the future because the pestilence didn't kill millions of people, after the blight happened. And so that ended up saving a lot of people, including one of Brainy's, I guess, more distant cousins. I don't know if it's exactly Brainiac or if it's another version of him that's evil, but it sounds like Brainiac to me. He wants to wipe out all other AI except for himself because he feels like he's the most superior one. I'm like, that sounds very interesting. And then Mon-El and Winn join them in the future. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I kind of want to watch that show. I'd rather watch that show than Supergirl. Just don't let the writers of Supergirl handle it, because then it'll be all about, Winn finds a girl in the future and he's interested in her, and then Mon-El and Imra working out their relationship differences, and then, I don't know, they're going to have another friend who's probably either going to be black or gay, and then they're going to have relationship issues to talk about not fitting in this world because of who they are. They would do it. They would do it because that's all the show wants to talk about most of the time. So I don't know. I was just, when they were telling me about that and I heard Winn was going to the future, I'm just like, man, I want to watch that show. But anyway, so he leaves. It is a very touching ceremony for him to leave. And then Alex and Kara are on the couch talking. And I think I talked about this in another episode earlier this season. It was either earlier this season or at the end of last season, because it was at the end of last season, because I do remember there was an episode where something went horribly wrong, something bad happened, and at the end of the episode, it was Alex went to Maggie and Kara went to Mon-El. And I just remember thinking, this show is really taking a weird turn, because I remember season 1, it was all about family. Even though it could get a little heavy-handed in the family stuff, that was the important thing. At the end of the day, that's what was most important to Supergirl. She saved the day, she would fight the bad guys, she stopped the villains. Great. But ultimately, she wanted it to be about family. So I just remember how many episodes ended with her and Alex talking about what happened, talking about just DEO stuff, or talking about what villain they were going to stop next. And then last season, it was all about the relationships. It was all about Alex and Maggie and Kara Mon-El and then Winn and his girl. And I'm just like, this is stupid. To the point where instead of ending it, Alex and Kara sitting on the couch talking, it was Alex going to Maggie and Kara going to Mon-El. I was like, oh, well, do they not care about each other anymore? We've seen how close their sisterly love is. Are they not going to do that anymore? And so to end this season with the both of them sitting on the couch and talking about everything that happened, I don't know. It felt like a callback to season 1 again. I'm like, I missed that. That is something that, honestly, I will say, it's something that did well in the first season, was their sisterhood. I believed it. It was very heartwarming. It was very convincing. And it was something that really identified the show that they completely went away from in season 2, in my opinion. And they kind of brought it back a little bit in this season. And that scene at the end really kind of just summed it up. I'm just like, that's what this show is missing, is the actual real heart. Because a lot of it just feels like it's a bunch of, people writing out these stories and writing in these cliches. This doesn't feel like a cliche. That scene did not feel like a cliche. It felt like something very true and very heartfelt. So with all that said and done, I mean, this season was not a good season. There were a lot of problems to it, a lot of distractions, a lot of time taken away from the main plot to focus on other things. The main plot itself was interesting at first, but then all of a sudden took a downturn somewhere about midway, started getting very bland, started like really getting frustrating with everything going on with Lena. Oh, of course we need to talk about Lena at the end because she's apparently still got some of the Mon-El or something, whatever it's called. She's still got some of it, so she's lying again to Supergirl, which means still trying to possibly set her up as maybe a bad guy. I don't know. I mean, it might turn out that way. I would just be so disappointed. Because you've got such an interesting character, or you had such an interesting character in Lena Luthor. When you first introduced her, it's like, can you trust her or can you not? She's Lex's sister. That means it's going to be difficult to trust her. And for most of the second season, it was kind of back and forth. By the end of it, though, you really felt like, okay, yeah, she's a trustworthy person. And now at the end of this season, it's like she did a full 180 whenever her and Supergirl had that spat. And now she actually kind of seems like she's going down the evil path. I'm just like, well, that's just boring. All because her and Supergirl had a falling out and they didn't trust each other. Like, that's what it took to turn you down an evil path? That's just stupid to me. But then again, still don't know for sure. Maybe it's not that way. Maybe she honestly just kept it because she wanted to run some tests and do something good with it. We'll see. I'm not in. At the beginning of the season, or really through most of the season, when I was thinking about going into the next season of this show or the possibility of this show continuing for more seasons, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I was probably a 3 or 4. Like I wanted to see if it could get better, but I wasn't looking forward to it really. I was just kind of like, this show is just not that good. The only benefit, there are 2 benefits that come out of it. One, in my opinion, it's fun to rant about. It's a fun show to really get pissed off at because of how stupid some of the stuff they do is. And honestly, it just, when I see it and when I talk about it and I go back and I listen, I'm listening to what I'm talking about. I'm like, yeah, that is really dumb. Like, how did nobody catch that? There are so many moments like that. And so on the one hand, it's very, very fun to have something to sort of release the aggression, rant about, because that is a fun way to sort of get your aggression out, is to just talk about how stupid something is. But on the other hand, I will say there are some elements of it that are pretty interesting. Seeing Supergirl is an interesting idea. It's a female superhero leading the show, which means it's not something you often see. It's a different side. We know Superman. We know a lot about Superman. It's a different side of the story because we see some of these villains that are either they're the same villains that Superman has faced or they're somehow connected to villains Superman has faced. Having Lena Luthor in the show is interesting. Lillian Luthor being on the show is interesting. Now they've got this whole future arc coming in with Mon-El and the Legion and all of that stuff. Stuff that's happened in the future could possibly affect their past. There is a lot of potential here. And so it wasn't like I was interested, but there were things that kept me watching it. By the end of the season, it's gone up a little bit. I would say instead of a 3 or 4, maybe a 6. It's probably like 5.5 if I had to say on how excited I am to get to the next season. I'm still not really, really looking forward to it. There are some elements that I'm looking forward to, but it feels like there's not much more they can do. It feels like they've run their course with some of these stories, and I don't see how they can really bring it back. There's still a big concern for me that they're probably going to bring Maggie back at some point because, Alex is kind of going back and forth on whether or not she wants kids, and Maggie obviously didn't want kids, and they're just like, oh, well, we got to have more Alex and Maggie, guys. I mean, aren't they just the cutest couple ever? Of course, Jimmy and Lena is still a thing. I still can't believe. I went back and watched one of my reviews in the second season, and I think I called the fact that Jimmy and Lena were going to get together. I don't even remember when it was, but I called that in season 2 that they were going to put them together, and then they did. And I'm just like, wow, like, is this show that predictable? It is. But overall, it's not the worst thing. I've seen worse. I've seen a lot worse, but it's still not good. It's not even really average. It's just kind of bland. There's some stupid, goofy things that are fun to make fun of, but for the most part, there's just not enough to really keep me going and keep me interested and invested. So we'll see. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe next season they'll replace the writing team. No, they're not going to do that, please. If they kept the same writing team from season 2, there's no way they're going to replace them for season 3 or season 4. But anyway, that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this episode and this season as a whole? And let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Supergirl reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.